Welcome to Galactic Nova Stories, where cosmic emotions come to life. Your journey begins now. The crimson warning lights cast dancing shadows across the sterile walls of Research Station Tau as Dr. Elena Cross stepped through the airlock. The metallic taste of recycled air filled her lungs, mixing with the sharp ozone scent that always lingered around alien technology. She adjusted the strap of her research kit, her brown eyes scanning the unfamiliar corridor with practiced curiosity. Dr. Cross. The voice belonged to Commander Vex, a tall Altarian whose blue-tinted skin gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lighting. His forearms moved in what Elena had learned was a gesture of cautious greeting among his species. "Welcome to Tau Station. I must confess, your arrival surprises us all." Elena smiled, extending her hand in the human fashion. "Surprises you? I was invited here to study the Zephyrian specimens." Vex's large dark eyes blinked slowly, twice the normal rate, Elena noted, indicating stress or confusion among Altarians. "Invited, yes, but we expected the Galactic Council to send someone more cautious. The Zephyrians are not like other species we study here." "That's exactly why I'm here." Elena's voice carried the quiet confidence that had earned her recognition across 17 star systems. Unknown species require fresh perspectives. As they walked through the station's central hub, Elena noticed how other alien researchers paused in their work to stare. A group of Centaurian scientists, their insectoid features barely concealed behind protective masks, chittered anxiously as she passed. Even the normally unflappable Nexians, beings of pure energy housed in crystalline forms, pulsed with agitated light patterns. "Commander," Elena said, her curiosity piqued by the unusual behavior, "what exactly makes the Zephyrian so concerning to everyone here?" Vex stopped beside a massive viewing port that looked out into the research bay. Through the reinforced glass, Elena could see a series of containment units, each one glowing with the soft blue light of stasis fields. Inside the nearest unit, a creature moved with fluid grace despite its confinement. The Zephyrian was breathtaking. Standing roughly 6 feet tall, her form was elegantly humanoid but clearly alien. Her skin held an opalescent quality, shifting between pale silver and deep blue depending on the angle of light. Long, flowing hair that seemed to move independently framed a face that was both beautiful and otherworldly. But it was her eyes that captured Elena's attention, large, luminous orbs that held an intelligence that seemed almost familiar, beautiful. Helena whispered, pressing her palm against the cool glass. "Beautiful and deadly," Vex corrected, his voice heavy with something that might have been regret. "That particular specimen is called Kira. She is young by their standards, barely past maturity. Like all Zephyrian females, her saliva contains a neurotoxin so potent that a single kiss would kill most male members of any species in the galaxy." Elena's breath caught. "Kill them how?" "Neural shutdown within minutes. We have documented over 300 cases across dozens of worlds. Zephyrian females cannot control this biological function. It is as natural to them as breathing is. To you, their own males die during mating every single time. It is a species that reproduces through death." The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. She watched Kira move within her containment field, noting the way the alien woman's shoulders seemed to slump, with an emotion that transcended species barriers. Loneliness, isolation, the universal weight of being feared for something beyond one's control. "That's impossible," Elena said softly, her scientific mind racing. "No species could survive such a reproductive strategy. There has to be more to it." "Our xenobiologists have studied them for 3 cycles, Vex replied. "The conclusion is unanimous. The Zephyrians are an evolutionary dead end. Dangerous. Beautiful, perhaps, but ultimately too hostile for peaceful coexistence with galactic civilization." Helena turned from the viewing port, her jaw set with determination. "Then your xenobiologists haven't looked hard enough. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. Galactic Nova Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. The next morning, Elena stood in her assigned laboratory, surrounded by holographic displays showing genetic sequences, behavioral analysis, and reproduction data from dozens of Zephyrian subjects. The numbers painted a grim picture, a species locked in a cycle of death that should have led to extinction millennia ago, yet somehow they endured. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered, highlighting inconsistencies in the data with quick gestures. "If every mating results in death, how do they maintain genetic diversity? How do they even maintain population numbers?" Her fingers danced across the holographic interface, calling up historical records from the 17 worlds where Zephyrians had been encountered. Each report told the same story: deadly beauties who killed with a kiss, leaving behind only sorrow and fear. But Elena saw what the other researchers had missed. Hidden in the margins of the reports, overlooked in favor of the more dramatic deaths, were small inconsistencies, references to Zephyrian settlements that seemed to thrive despite their supposed death-mating cycle, mentions of pairs that somehow survived longer than others before the inevitable occurred. As she worked, Elena felt eyes upon her. Through the laboratory's transparent walls, she could see other researchers watching her with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Their alien faces, so different from her own, all seemed to carry the same expression of bewilderment at the human who chose to study death itself. But Elena had learned long ago that the universe's greatest secrets often hid behind its most frightening faces. And as she looked back toward the containment bay where Kira waited in her glowing prison, she felt something that her alien colleagues would never understand. Not just scientific curiosity, but genuine empathy for a creature that had never asked to be born dangerous. Elena's first direct encounter with a Zephyrian specimen came 3 days after her arrival at Tau Station. The research bay hummed with energy barriers and monitoring equipment as she stood before Kira's containment unit, her heart racing with anticipation and professional excitement. "Are you certain about this, Dr. Cross?" Dr. Quill, the station's head researcher, shifted nervously on his multiple legs. The arachnoid's 8 eyes reflected concern as he monitored the readings on his handheld scanner. Direct contact with Zephyrian subjects has been prohibited since the Henderson incident. Elena adjusted her protective suit, though she suspected it would offer little protection against a neurotoxin as sophisticated as what the reports described. "I can't study behavior through barriers, Dr. Quill. Real research requires real interaction." "The Henderson incident?" Elena asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. "A Tyrellian researcher 3 months ago. He believed he could establish communication with a male Zephyrian. The subject seemed calm, even friendly. Then the female in the adjacent containment unit somehow breached her barriers." Quill's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Henderson was found dead 20 minutes later. Single contact with Zephyrian saliva, neural pathways completely fried." As the energy barrier dissolved, Elena stepped into the containment space. Kira, who had been seated on the simple bench provided for, her comfort rose gracefully to her feet. Up close, the Zephyrian's beauty was even more striking and more tragic. Elena could see intelligence in those luminous eyes, curiosity mixed with caution. "Hello, Kira," Elena said softly, keeping her movements slow and non-threatening. "My name is Elena. I'm here to learn about you." Kira tilted her head, a gesture so human it made Elena's chest tighten with unexpected emotion. When the Zephyrian spoke, her voice was like music, melodic and rich despite being filtered through the translation device. "You are the human they speak of, the one who is not afraid." "I am afraid," Elena admitted, taking another careful step closer. "But fear shouldn't stop us from understanding each other." Through the observation windows, Elena could see the alien research staff gathering, their various forms pressed against the glass in fascination and horror. She ignored them, focusing entirely on the being before her. "Why do you study us?" Kira asked, her opalescent skin shifting toward deeper blue tones. "Your people know what we are, what we do to those who come too close." Elena pulled up a holographic chair and sat down, making herself less imposing. "Because I don't believe that's all you are. No species survives on death alone. There has to be more." For the next hour, Eleanor asked questions that no previous researcher had thought to pose. Not just about reproduction and toxicity, but about culture, dreams, relationships, and the emotional lives of beings that everyone else viewed as living weapons. Kira spoke of her childhood on Zephyr Prime, of learning to paint with light crystals, and composing songs that could make the twin suns dance in harmony. She described the deep bonds between Zephyrian women, sisterships that sustained them through lives of enforced isolation. Most surprisingly, she spoke of love, not the deadly passion that killed, but the gentle affection shared between females, of her species, the only safe emotional connections they could maintain. "But what about males?" Elena asked gently. "Do you never feel lonely for that kind of companionship?" Kira's skin shifted to pale silver, and her luminous eyes dimmed. "We dream of it. All of us dream of the bonding our mothers and grandmothers spoke of in whispers. But dreams and reality are different things, Dr. Elena. We are made to kill what we most desire to love." That evening, Elena sat in her quarters reviewing the day's recordings. The other researchers had been unusually quiet during the daily briefing, their alien expressions unreadable, but their body language speaking volumes. They thought she was taking unnecessary risks, developing emotional attachments that would cloud her scientific judgment. But as Elena listened to Kira's voice describing her species' art and culture, she heard something that escaped pure logical analysis. Pain, longing, the universal ache of beings forced to live in isolation not by choice, but by biology. Her computer chimed with an incoming message from Commander Vex. The text was brief and formal. "Dr. Cross, your research methods have raised concerns among the staff. Please remember that emotional attachment compromises scientific objectivity. The Zephyrian specimens are scheduled for termination in 14 days, pending completion of current studies." Elena stared at the message until the words blurred. Termination. They were going to kill them all. Kira, the 3 other females, and the single male currently held in maximum security isolation. Kill them because they were deemed too dangerous to exist, too alien to understand. She pulled up the genetic analysis she had been working on, comparing Zephyrian DNA to dozens of other species in the Galactic database. There were patterns here, structures that suggested adaptation rather than random evolution. The toxin production wasn't a biological mistake. It was sophisticated, controlled, variable in ways that the previous researchers had completely missed. Elena worked through the night, driven by a growing conviction that everyone else was wrong. The Zephyrians weren't evolutionary failures destined for extinction. They were survivors, adapted to challenges that no other species had faced. The key was understanding not just their biology, but their psychology, the emotional framework that guided their seemingly impossible survival strategy. As dawn broke across the station's viewports, Eleanor made a decision that would change everything. She was going to prove that love, not death, was the secret to Zephyrian survival, and she was going to do it before Commander Vex's termination order could be carried out. The universe was about to discover that human intuition could unlock secrets that pure logic never could. Eleanor's unauthorized research sessions with Kira became a daily ritual that sent ripples of unease throughout Tau Station. Each morning, she would enter the containment bay with new questions, new theories, and a growing sense of connection that her alien colleagues found deeply disturbing. Dr. Cross, Commander Vex, approached her workstation on the 7th day, his forearms crossed in a gesture of stern disapproval. "Your emotional investment in the Zephyrian subjects has become concerning. Several staff members have reported unusual behavior patterns in your interactions." Eleanor looked up from her data analysis, noting how the other researchers had subtly gathered nearby, close enough to listen, far enough to retreat if the conversation became uncomfortable. "What kind of unusual behavior, Commander?" "You speak to the specimen as if it were a colleague rather than a research subject. You show physical signs of distress when discussing the termination schedule. Yesterday, Dr. Quill observed you making what appeared to be comforting gestures when the subject became agitated." "Her name is Kira," Elena said quietly. "And yes, I comforted her. She was telling me about her sister who died in an experiment on Kepler Station. Wouldn't you comfort a grieving friend?" The silence that followed was profound. Elena could see the confusion in their alien faces, expressions that crossed species barriers despite vast biological differences. To them, her behavior was not just unprofessional but incomprehensible. Dr. Quill's 8 eyes blinked in rapid succession. Dr. Cross, surely you understand that emotional attachment to research subjects compromises scientific integrity. These creatures are dangerous, beautiful perhaps, but lethal to anyone who allows sentiment to override caution. That's where you're wrong, Elena stood, her voice carrying conviction that surprised even her. My emotional attachment is revealing data that pure objectivity missed. Kira's responses change dramatically based on emotional context. Her biochemistry literally shifts when she feels safe, understood, cared for. She pulled up holographic displays showing neurochemical readings from their sessions. Look at these patterns. When she's relaxed and trusting, the toxin production in her saliva drops by 30%. When she's frightened or angry, it spikes to lethal levels. This isn't random, it's controlled, adaptive. Commander Vex studied the data with growing skepticism. Even if accurate, this changes nothing. A 30% reduction in a lethal toxin is still lethal. The specimens remain too dangerous for civilized contact. But don't you see? Eleanor's excitement was palpable. This suggests their toxicity isn't fixed. It's variable, responsive to psychological and emotional states. What if we're looking at the most sophisticated mate selection mechanism ever evolved? The gathering of alien researchers began to murmur among themselves in their various languages. Eleanor caught fragments of translation, words like impossible, dangerous thinking, and human irrationality. Dr. Zenner, a crystalline whose faceted form pulsed with agitated light, spoke up. Dr. Cross, even if your theory has merit, the risk remains unacceptable. These beings have killed hundreds across 17 worlds. Your emotional investment appears to be clouding your judgment of the statistical reality. Elena felt something snap inside her. Not anger, but a fierce protective instinct that she hadn't expected. Statistical reality. Kira isn't a statistic. She's a sentient being with thoughts, feelings, dreams, and fears. She paints music that can heal emotional trauma. She mourns friends lost to species prejudice. She lives in constant isolation because everyone she might love would die from her touch. Precisely why they must be terminated, Commander Vex said with finality. Such existence is cruel to them and dangerous to others. You want to commit genocide because you can't understand love, Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper, but carrying clearly through the suddenly silent research bay. The accusation hung in the air like a physical presence. Elena could see the shock on alien faces, the incomprehension that a human would equate termination of dangerous specimens with genocide. That's enough, Dr. Cross. Vex's voice carried the weight of command authority. You will discontinue direct contact with the Zephyrian subjects effective immediately. Your emotional compromise has rendered your research unreliable. My emotional compromise is the only thing that's produced real data, Elena shot back. While you've been studying them like viruses in a petri dish, I've been learning about their civilization, their values, their capacity for love and sacrifice. Love? Dr. Quill's multiple legs skittered nervously. Dr. Cross, these creatures kill through the very act of intimacy. How can you speak of love? Eleanor turned toward the containment bay where she could see Kira's silhouette moving gracefully within her energy prison. Because she told me about Mira. The name seemed to carry weight that even the translation devices couldn't fully convey. Elena saw several researchers shift uncomfortably. Mira was Kira's childhood companion on Zephyr Prime. They grew up together, learned together, shared everything that Zephyrian females can safely share. When they reached maturity, Mira volunteered for the first interspecies contact program. She believed that if other species could understand Zephyrians, they might find a way to break the cycle of isolation. Elena's voice softened with genuine grief. Mira died in a laboratory on Vega 7, alone, afraid, used as a test subject for toxin extraction experiments. Kira has carried that pain for 6 years now, and she still volunteers to help with research because she believes that understanding leads to hope. The silence stretched uncomfortably long. Finally, Commander Vex spoke, his voice carefully controlled. "Touching story, Dr. Cross, but it changes nothing. The termination order stands. These creatures are too dangerous to exist in civilized space." Elena met his gaze steadily. "Then you'll have to terminate me too, Commander, because I'm not giving up on them." The declaration sent shock waves through the assembled researchers. Elena could see the confusion, the concern, the complete inability to comprehend how a human could risk everything for beings that most of the galaxy considered monsters. But as she looked toward Kira's containment unit, Elena saw something that her alien colleagues had missed entirely. Kira was watching through the transparent walls, her luminous eyes fixed on Elena with an expression of wonder and gratitude that transcended species barriers. For the first time in her life, Kira had found someone willing to see her as more than a beautiful monster, and Elena was about to prove that human empathy could unlock secrets that pure logic never could. Elena's clandestine research began in the early hours of station night cycle, when most of the alien crew retreated to their quarters for rest periods. The containment bay, usually buzzing with activity, fell into an eerie quiet, broken only by the gentle hum of energy barriers and life support systems. "You shouldn't be here," Kira said softly as Elena approached her containment unit. Despite the warning, the Zephyrian's opalescent skin had shifted to warmer silver tones, a sign Elena had learned indicated comfort and trust. "Neither should you," Elena replied, pulling up her portable research station. "But here we are, two females trying to solve the universe's problems in the middle of the night." Kira's laugh was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Is that what we're doing? I thought you were trying to prove my species isn't a cosmic mistake." "Same thing, really." Elena activated her scanners, focusing on biochemical readings from Kira's respiratory system. "Tell me about the bonding rituals on Zephyr Prime. Not the mating rituals, I understand those are fatal. I mean the emotional bonds between females." Kira settled into a meditation posture, her movements flowing like water. "Sister bonds are sacred to us. We share breath, share thoughts, share the deep currents of feeling that connect all living things. When two Zephyrian females achieve true harmony, they can synchronize their biorhythms, even influence each other's toxin production." Elena's scanners chimed softly, detecting fluctuations in Kira's neurochemical patterns. "Show me." "I cannot demonstrate alone. Sister bonding requires two participants in harmony." Kira's luminous eyes met Elena's through the energy barrier. Unless what? "Unless you would be willing to attempt partial bonding with me. It is dangerous, not physically, but emotionally. You would feel what I feel, experience the loneliness and longing that defines Zephyrian existence." Elena's heart raced with excitement and terror, in equal measure. "What would I need to do?" "Place your hand against the barrier. Focus on your breathing, on the rhythm of your heartbeat. Open your mind to the possibility that two very different beings might still share common emotional ground." Elena glanced around the empty research bay, knowing that what she was about to attempt violated every safety protocol on the station. But her scientific instinct screamed that this was the breakthrough she had been seeking. She pressed her palm against the energy field separating them. The barrier hummed with power, creating a tingling sensation that traveled up her arm. Kira mirrored the gesture from her side, their hands separated by inches and an impenetrable wall of force. "Close your eyes," Kira whispered. "Feel the rhythm of the station around us, the heartbeat of machinery, the breath of recycled air, the pulse. Drive energy through every system." Elena let her awareness expand, following Kira's gentle guidance. Gradually, she became conscious of something extraordinary, a harmony between biological and mechanical systems, as if the station itself had become a living entity, sustained by the interaction of alien technologies and diverse life forms. "Now, feel deeper," Kira continued. "Feel the loneliness of being separated by species barriers, the longing for connection that transcends physical form." The emotion hit Elena like a wave. Not her own feelings, but an echo of something vast and profound, the accumulated longing of an entire species forced to live in isolation. She gasped, her eyes flying open to meet Kira's luminous gaze. "You felt it," Kira said, wonder evident in her voice. "A human, feeling the sister bond across species lines. This has never happened before." Elena's scanners were going wild, detecting biochemical changes in both their systems. Kira's toxin production had dropped to barely detectable levels, while Elena's own neurochemistry showed patterns associated with deep emotional bonding and trust. "The emotional connection is affecting your biology," Elena breathed. "When you feel genuinely bonded, genuinely safe, your toxin production nearly shuts down." "But I am still dangerous," Kira protested. "Even at reduced levels, my saliva would kill most species." "Most, but not all." Elena's mind raced with possibilities. What if Zephyrian males have evolved complementary resistances? What if the toxin isn't meant to kill during mating, but to test the strength of emotional bonds? Before Kira could respond, the research bay's lights suddenly blazed to full illumination. Commander Vex strode into the space flanked by security personnel, his forearms spread in a gesture of stern authority. "Dr. Cross, step away from the containment unit immediately." Elena slowly removed her hand from the barrier, her mind still, reeling from the breakthrough she had just experienced. "Commander, I've discovered something important about Zephyrian biochemistry." "You've discovered that human emotional instability makes you unsuitable for this research," Vex interrupted, coldly. "Dr. Quill detected unusual energy fluctuations from this sector. When we investigated, we found you conducting unauthorized experiments that could have compromised station security." "I was proving that Zephyrian toxicity is emotionally regulated," Elena protested. "With the right emotional conditions, they're not nearly as dangerous as we believed. Even if true, your methods are unacceptable." Vex gestured to his security team. "Escort Dr. Cross to her quarters. She is confined there pending review of her research privileges." As the security officers moved to flank her, Elena turned back to Kira. The Zephyrian's skin had shifted to deep blue. The color Elena had learned indicated distress and fear. "Don't give up," Elena called out as she was led away. "I'll find a way to prove what we discovered tonight." Kira's voice followed, her down the corridor, barely audible but carrying clearly in the sudden quiet. "I know you will, sister friend. I know you will." In her quarters, Elena paced like a caged animal while her mind processed the night's revelations. The emotional bonding with Kira had been real, measurable, scientifically significant. But more than that, it had revealed the truth about Zephyrian survival. They weren't evolutionary failures doomed to extinction through deadly reproduction. They were the most sophisticated empathic species in the galaxy, with biochemical systems that responded to emotional harmony in ways that could revolutionize understanding of love itself. But she had less than 10 days to prove it before the termination order was carried out. 10 days to convince an entire station of alien scientists that human intuition had unlocked secrets their pure logic couldn't grasp. 10 days to save Kira's life and possibly change the course of galactic civilization forever. Elena's confinement lasted exactly 18 hours. She spent every minute analyzing the data from her bonding session with Kira, building an airtight scientific case that emotional harmony could regulate Zephyrian toxicity. When Commander Vex finally arrived to escort her to the station's main conference room, she was ready. The conference chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from a dozen species gathered around the holographic display table. Elena recognized some faces from the research teams, but others were new. Official observers from the Galactic Council, their presence indicating that her research had attracted attention far beyond Tau Station. "Dr. Cross," Vex began formally, "you stand accused of violating safety protocols, conducting unauthorized experiments, and developing emotional attachments that compromise scientific objectivity. How do you respond?" Elena activated her portable research unit, filling the chamber with holographic displays of biochemical data, neurological scans, and comparative analyses. "I respond with proof that my methods have revealed the greatest xenobiological discovery of this century." Murmurs rippled through the assembled aliens as Elena's data painted a picture none of them had expected. Detailed measurements showing the correlation between emotional states and toxin production. Neurochemical analyses proving that Zephyrian biochemistry responded to psychological harmony. Most remarkably, comparative studies suggesting that males of their species possessed natural resistances that activated only in the presence of genuine emotional bonding. Impossible, declared Dr. Rettig, a Vulcanoid observer from the Galactic Council. These readings suggest that Zephyrian reproduction depends on emotional synchronization rather than simple biological function. Such complexity violates basic evolutionary principles. Does it? Eleanor challenged. Or does it represent evolution we simply haven't encountered before? A species that developed beyond physical mating to require genuine emotional bonding for successful reproduction. She pulled up historical data from the 17 worlds where Zephyrian encounters had been recorded. Look at the patterns. Deaths occurred primarily during first contact situations, moments of fear, aggression, or territorial threat. But in every case where Zephyrians lived peacefully alongside other species, fatality rates dropped significantly. Correlation is not causation, Dr. Quill interjected, his 8 eyes blinking rapidly with agitation. Even if your emotional bonding theory has merit, these creatures remain statistically lethal. The risk to galactic civilization is unacceptable. Elena's frustration boiled over. Galactic civilization? You mean the same civilization that's about to commit genocide because it's easier than trying to understand beings who love differently than you do? The accusation sent shockwaves through the chamber. Several delegates rose to their feet in protest, their various forms bristling with indignation. Dr. Cross, Vex's voice carried warning, you will maintain appropriate decorum or be removed from these proceedings. Appropriate decorum? Elena stood, her voice carrying across the chamber with passionate intensity. Commander, in 6 days, you plan to execute 4 sentient beings, whose only crime is being born with biology that frightens you. Where's the decorum in that? They are not being executed, Dr. Rettig corrected coldly. They are being humanely terminated to prevent further loss of life across multiple star systems. Humanely terminated, Elena repeated, the words bitter on her tongue. Do you know what Kira asked me yesterday? She asked if I thought her sister Mira felt pain when she died in that laboratory on Vega 7. She wanted to know if her friend's sacrifice meant anything, if it helped anyone understand their species better. Elena activated a new holographic display, a recording of her conversation with Kira, showing the Zephyrian's luminous eyes filled with grief as she spoke of her lost friend. This is what you're planning to humanely terminate, Elena continued, a being capable of love, loss, hope, and sacrifice. A being who volunteered to help with research, despite knowing that every other member of her species who participated in similar studies ended up dead. The chamber fell silent as Kira's voice filled the space, translated but carrying unmistakable emotion as she spoke of her hope that someday, somehow, her people might find a way to love without killing. Touching, Dr. Rettig said when the recording ended. But emotional manipulation cannot override scientific necessity. These creatures remain too dangerous for contact with civilized species. Then test my theory, Elena challenged. Give me access to the male specimen. Let me prove that emotional bonding can overcome biological toxicity. The suggestion sent a ripple of alarm through the assembled delegates. Commander Vex's 4 arms crossed in a gesture of absolute refusal. Absolutely not. The male specimen is held in maximum security isolation for good reason. Direct contact would be suicidal. Not direct contact, Elena clarified. Monitored interaction through advanced containment protocols. Let Kira and the male, what's his name? Tam, Dr. Quill provided reluctantly. The male subject is designated Tam. Let Kira and Tam interact through controlled barriers while we monitor their biochemical responses. If my theory is correct, emotional bonding will reduce toxicity to survivable levels. The chamber erupted in arguments as delegates debated the proposal in multiple languages. Elena caught fragments of translation, concerns about safety, questions about scientific validity, debates over the ethics of using sentient beings as test subjects. Finally, Dr. Rettig called for order. Dr. Cross, even if we were to approve such an experiment, what happens if you're wrong? If the male dies despite your precautions? Elena met his gaze steadily. Then you carry out your termination order, and I'll accept full responsibility for his death. But if I'm right, if genuine emotional bonding can overcome biological toxicity, then you'll have to acknowledge that the Zephyrians aren't monsters to be eliminated, but a species that's evolved beyond our current understanding of love itself. The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever. Elena could see the conflict in alien faces, the struggle between scientific curiosity and institutional caution. Finally, Commander Vex spoke. The Galactic Council will deliberate on your proposal. In the meantime, you remain confined to quarters, under close supervision. As Elena was led from the chamber, she caught sight of the viewing port that looked out into the containment bay. Kira stood at the edge of her energy barrier, her opalescent skin pale with anxiety. As she watched the proceedings she couldn't hear but somehow understood. Elena pressed her hand against the port's glass, and across the distance, Kira mirrored the gesture. Two beings from different worlds, different species, united by a bond that transcended every barrier except the ones built by fear and misunderstanding. In 3 days, Elena would either prove that love was the universe's most powerful force or watch helplessly as fear destroyed the most remarkable species she had ever encountered. The Galactic Council's decision came at dawn on the 2nd day. Elena was awakened by the harsh buzz of her quarters intercom, Commander Vex's voice cutting through her sleep like a blade. Dr. Cross, report to Laboratory 7 immediately. The experiment has been approved under strict supervision. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs as she dressed quickly and made her way through the station's corridors. The hallways buzzed with unusual activity, additional security teams, portable monitoring equipment being wheeled toward the laboratory complex, and clusters of researchers speaking in hushed, urgent tones. Laboratory 7 had been transformed overnight into something resembling a medical theater. Tiers of observation stations surrounded a central chamber, where 2 containment units had been positioned precisely 3 meters apart. Advanced scanning equipment monitored every molecule of air between them, while emergency response teams stood ready with medical equipment designed for a dozen different alien physiologies. Dr. Cross, Dr. Rettick approached, his Vulcanoid features set in stern disapproval. The Council has agreed to your experiment under the following conditions. Both subjects remain in full containment at all times. Any sign of dangerous toxin levels triggers immediate separation. If the male subject shows any signs of distress, the experiment ends immediately. Elena nodded, her attention already focused on the 2 containment units being wheeled into position. She had seen Kira dozens of times, but this was her first glimpse of Tam, the male Zephyrian who had been kept in maximum security isolation since his capture 6 months ago. He was breathtaking in a completely different way than Kira. Where she was graceful and flowing, Tam possessed a compact strength that spoke of survival against impossible odds. His opalescent skin showed deeper tones, gold and bronze shifting beneath silver, while his luminous eyes held a wariness that made Elena's heart ache with recognition. "He's afraid," she whispered, watching as Tam pressed himself against the far wall of his containment unit. "Of course he's afraid," Commander Vex replied. "Male Zephyrians have been conditioned by evolution to fear their own females. Every instinct tells him that proximity to her means death." As the containment units locked into position, Elena could see both Zephyrians reacting to each other's presence. Kira's skin had shifted to warm silver tones, but her posture was tense, with controlled emotion. Tam's coloration darkened toward bronze, his breathing rapid and shallow. "Begin monitoring," Dr. Rettick commanded. Immediately, the laboratory filled with the soft chimes and beeps of scanning equipment analyzing every aspect of the subject's biochemistry. "Kira," Elena spoke through the communication system, "can you hear me?" "Yes, Dr. Elena." Kira's voice carried both hope and terror. Is that really Tam? I thought I would never see a male of our species again." "Tam?" Elena addressed the male gently. "My name is Elena. I'm a researcher studying your species. The female you see is Kira. She's not going to hurt you. Tam's response was barely audible. All females hurt. It is their nature. It is what they were made to do. Elena felt her heart break at the resignation in his voice. Tam, what if I told you that wasn't true? What if the hurting only happens when there's no emotional connection, no genuine bonding? Impossible, Tam replied, but Elena caught the faint note of hope beneath his skepticism. Kira, Elena continued, tell Tam about your sister bonds with other females. Explain how emotional harmony affects your biochemistry. Kira began to speak, her melodic voice filling the laboratory as she described the deep connections possible between Zephyrian females. As she spoke, Elena watched the monitoring displays with growing excitement. Kira's toxin production was dropping, steadily responding to the emotional act of reaching out to another being. You see, Eleanor addressed the assembled observers. Her biochemistry is changing just from the act of emotional connection. Imagine what would happen with genuine bonding. The levels are still lethal, Dr. Quill protested, his 8 eyes focused on the readouts. A 50% reduction in a deadly toxin is still deadly. But Elena was watching something the others had missed. Tam's biochemical readings were changing too. Subtle shifts in his hormone levels, neural activity that suggested his body was producing compounds that hadn't been detected in previous studies. Tam, Elena said gently, what are you feeling right now? I don't know, he admitted, his voice filled with wonder. Something I have never felt before. She speaks of connection, of harmony, and my body responds as if it remembers. Something forgotten. Impossible, Dr. Rettig muttered, but Eleanor could see uncertainty creeping into his expression. Kira, move closer to your barrier, Elena instructed. Tam, if you're willing, do the same. Both Zephyrians hesitated, then slowly approached the energy fields that separated them. As the distance between them decreased, the monitoring equipment began registering dramatic changes. Kira's toxin production continued to drop, now reaching levels that were merely dangerous rather than instantly lethal. But more remarkably, Tam's biochemistry was producing compounds that Elena's databases suggested were natural toxin neutralizers, biological antidotes his species had evolved specifically to survive bonded mating. This is unprecedented, Doctor, Quill whispered, his voice filled with scientific awe. The male is producing biological countermeasures in direct response to emotional proximity. Place your hands against the barriers, Elena instructed, her voice tight with excitement. Mirror each other's movements. Focus on the connection you feel. As Kira and Tam pressed their palms against their respective energy fields, the laboratory fell silent except for the increasingly rapid chimes of the monitoring equipment. The two Zephyrians gazed at each other through the barriers and 3 meters of carefully monitored space, their opalescent skin shifting to synchronized patterns of silver and gold. I can feel him, Kira whispered in wonder. Not just see him, but feel his presence, his emotions. It's like the sister bonds, but deeper, stronger. She's not dangerous, Tam said, his voice filled with amazement. I can sense her gentleness, her desire to protect rather than harm. How is this possible? Elena turned to face the assembled observers, her voice carrying triumphant conviction. Because evolution isn't just about survival, it's about connection. The Zephyrians didn't evolve deadly toxins to kill their mates. They evolved the most sophisticated bonding mechanism in the galaxy, one that requires genuine emotional harmony for successful reproduction. The toxin levels are still measurable, Dr. Rettig protested, but his objection lacked conviction. At current levels, with Tam's natural countermeasures activated, contact would be survivable, Elena replied. And these levels will continue to drop as their emotional bond deepens. They're not monsters. They're the most highly evolved empathic species we've ever encountered. Commander Vex studied the readouts with growing amazement. If this is accurate, it changes everything we thought. We knew about Zephyrian biology. It changes everything we thought we knew about love, Elena corrected. They've evolved beyond simple physical reproduction to require genuine emotional bonding. They literally cannot mate successfully without true love. As if to emphasize her point, both Zephyrians' coloration shifted to warm, synchronized patterns of silver and gold. The monitoring equipment registered the lowest toxin levels ever recorded from a Zephyrian female, while Tam's antidote production reached levels that would neutralize even normal toxin concentrations. Remarkable, Dr. Retic admitted grudgingly. But even if your theory is correct, it doesn't change the practical reality. These beings remain potentially dangerous to other species. Only to those who approach without emotional connection, Elena replied. To those who see them as monsters rather than beings capable of love. She turned back to Kira and Tam, who remained transfixed by their first encounter with a member of the opposite sex, who didn't trigger their species' tragic reproductive cycle. This is what you're planning to terminate in 4 days, Elena said quietly. Not monsters, but lovers, who finally found a way to love safely. The silence that followed spoke volumes about the paradigm shift occurring in the laboratory. For the first time, the assembled alien researchers were seeing Zephyrians not as dangerous specimens, but as beings whose very existence proved that love could overcome even the most impossible biological barriers. But Elena knew that proving her theory and saving Kira's life were two very different challenges. The real test would come when the Galactic Council decided whether emotional discovery could override centuries of fear and misunderstanding. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of Elena's successful demonstration. Representatives from 47 species filled the massive chamber aboard the orbital station that served as the galaxy's political center, their diverse forms creating a tapestry of alien life united by a single unprecedented question. Could love literally conquer biological death? Elena stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by holographic displays showing the data from her experiments with Kira and Tam. The evidence was overwhelming. Biochemical proof that Zephyrian toxicity decreased in direct proportion to emotional bonding, supported by documentation of natural antidotes produced by males in response to genuine connection. Honorable Councillors, Elena began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems, 3 days ago, you were prepared to authorize the termination of 4 sentient beings based on the assumption that they were evolutionary mistakes. 2, dangerous to exist in civilized space. Today I present evidence that they represent the most advanced empathic evolution our galaxy has ever produced. Chancellor Vore, a towering draconian whose scales shifted with political calculation, leaned forward on his massive throne. Dr. Cross, your research is fascinating, but it does not address the fundamental concern. These creatures have killed hundreds across 17 worlds. Even if your bonding theory explains their biology, the practical threat remains. Does it? Elena challenged, pulling up historical data from the encounters. Chancellor, every single death occurred during first contact situations characterized by fear, aggression, or capture attempts. The Zephyrians who killed were either defending themselves or responding to threat displays from species who approached them as predators rather than potential allies. She highlighted specific incidents, showing the correlation between hostile encounters and fatalities versus peaceful approaches and survival. In every case where other species approached Zephyrians with respect and genuine curiosity, toxin levels dropped significantly. The deaths weren't random acts of biological warfare, they were defensive responses to perceived threats. Even so, interjected Councillor Thex, a crystalline whose faceted form pulsed with analytical light, the risk remains unacceptable. A species that kills through the act of intimacy cannot coexist safely with others. Elena smiled, recognizing the opening she had been waiting for. Councillor Thex, you're absolutely correct. A species that kills through intimacy cannot coexist safely. But what if I told you that the Zephyrians don't kill through intimacy? They kill through the absence of it. The chamber fell silent as Elena activated a new series of displays, showing detailed biochemical analyses from dozens of Zephyrian encounters. Every fatality involved males from other species attempting physical contact without any emotional connection. The toxin doesn't activate during genuine bonding. It activates specifically to prevent bonding without emotional harmony. Impossible, declared Dr. Mex, a Vulcanoid representative whose logical mind rejected such complexity. Evolution does not produce mechanisms of such sophistication. Doesn't it? Eleanor turned to address the full council. Honorable councillors, you represent 47 different species, each evolved for different environments and challenges. Some of you reproduce through spore release, others through complex mating rituals, still others through technological assistance. Why is it impossible that one species evolved to require emotional bonding for successful reproduction? She gestured to the data displays surrounding her. The Zephyrians aren't biological monsters. They're biological poets. They literally cannot reproduce without love, cannot mate without genuine emotional connection. Their toxin production isn't a weapon. It's a safeguard that ensures only truly bonded pairs can successfully create offspring. Chancellor Vor's scales shifted to deeper colors, indicating serious consideration. Dr. Cross, even if we accept your theory, it raises disturbing questions about the treatment these beings have received across multiple worlds. If they truly require emotional bonding for survival, then our standard containment and research protocols would be torture, Elena finished quietly. Isolation, fear-based interactions, treatment as dangerous specimens rather than sentient beings. Everything we've done to study them has been specifically designed to trigger their defensive responses. The weight of that realization settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. Elena could see the discomfort in alien faces as they contemplated the implications of her words. Furthermore, Elena continued, the Zephyrians may hold the key to understanding empathic evolution across all species. Their biochemical responses to emotional states could revolutionize our understanding of consciousness, bonding, and the biological basis of love itself. And what do you propose we do with this knowledge? Chancellor Vor asked. Grant them full citizenship rights under galactic law, Elena replied without hesitation. Establish diplomatic relations with Zephyr Prime. Learn from them instead of fearing them. And most importantly, release Kira, Tam, and the other subjects from containment so they can demonstrate that love truly can overcome any biological barrier. The debate that followed stretched for hours, with representatives arguing the merits of Elena's proposal from every conceivable angle. Some focused on the scientific implications, others on the political ramifications of admitting that entire worlds had been wrong about a sentient species. Finally, Chancellor Vor called for order. Dr. Cross, the Council will consider your proposal. In the meantime, what guarantee can you offer that these beings will not pose a threat if released? Elena thought of Kira's luminous eyes filled with hope and determination, of Tam's wonder at discovering he could love without killing, of the potential for connection that transcended every barrier except fear and misunderstanding. I offer myself as that guarantee, Chancellor. I volunteer to serve as the first official liaison between humanity and the Zephyrian people. If they prove dangerous, hold me responsible. But if they prove to be what I believe they are, beings whose very existence proves that love is the universe's most powerful evolutionary force, then this council will have made history by choosing understanding over fear. The vote, when it came, was closer than Elena had hoped, but decisive enough to change everything. By a margin of 26 to 21, the Galactic Council voted to grant the Zephyrians provisional citizenship status and establish the galaxy's first empathic species research initiative. 3 months later, Elena stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed Zephyrian Cultural Exchange Station, watching as Kira and Tam walked together through the station's central garden. Their hands were intertwined, their opalescent, skin showing synchronized patterns of silver and gold that had become the universal symbol of successful interspecies understanding. Any regrets? Asked Dr. Quill, who had volunteered to serve as Elena's assistant in the new research program. Elena smiled, watching as other species representatives approached Kira and Tam with genuine curiosity, rather than fear. The toxin levels that had once made the Zephyrians untouchable had become barely detectable now that they lived in an environment of emotional safety and acceptance. Only one, Elena replied, that it took us so long to realize that the universe's most dangerous species was also its most loving. Through the observation port, she could see Kira demonstrating her light crystal painting to a group of fascinated Centaurian children, while Tam shared the harmonious songs of Zephyr Prime with a mixed group of alien musicians. What had once been considered lethal contact had become the foundation for the most successful interspecies cultural exchange program in galactic history. Elena's research had proven that human intuition and empathy could unlock secrets that pure logic never could. But more than that, it had demonstrated that love, genuine, emotionally authentic love, truly was the universe's most powerful force. The Zephyrians weren't the galaxy's most dangerous species after all. They were its most hopeful, proving that even the most impossible barriers could be overcome by beings willing to see beyond fear to the connection that united all conscious life. And in the end, that understanding would transform not just how the galaxy viewed the Zephyrians, but how every species understood the true nature of love itself.